Okay, well, thanks for coming. Who's used NativeScript? Who's done anything with it? Okay, nobody's done anything. All right, so if I'm not going to repeat all the stuff you can hear in the keynote, so you can run over to their website, which is nativescript.org, and they have this thing, how does it work, and there's some keynotes and a whole bunch of really interesting things that you can learn about NativeScript here. So I'll let you, after I explain everything, go ahead and explore that at your leisure. What's nice is they have the little roadmap getting started. You can view it in GitHub. You can see your documentation. So it's kind of cool, right? It's a one-stop shop, and it's pretty good. The guys on Twitter, make sure you copy their names when you watch the videos, because that's the way I've been getting support. If you look at my Twitter feed, it's at @KDog02, I think is my Twitter handle. So that's me. You can follow me if you want, but and you can look at my recent friends. They're all going to be Telerik people, and they answer questions right there, which is kind of cool, right? Yeah. All right. So that's all you need to know from the Telerik side. I don't have any slides. I'm not a slide person. This little link here, I'll have Dan make it available. It's my personal GitHub. And this app is all right here, plus all of the hacks that I had to do to get this to work, which I'll explain everything. You're actually going to be pretty glad you came into this class, because of the learning curve was crazy. And there's broken things that Telerik's giving us right now. So I fixed them, and I put the fixes in here, okay? You'll know how to handle this. All right. So what NativeScript essentially is going to do is you're going to use CSS, XML, and JavaScript or TypeScript, and it creates your app, and then you're going to put it on your device. And it'll take that code that you wrote and turn it into native code for the device. So that's Windows Phone 8, that's the iOS device, and Android devices. So that's pretty cool, right? To get started with it, essentially all you have to do is make sure you have Node on your machine, and they're getting started. It's really twisted, all the things they tell you, and you have to kind of sift through it, but all you need is Node and the app builder add-in for Visual Studio, and you're ready to go. You don't have to download any SDKs. They tell you all that stuff. You don't need any of that. So now, if you're on Windows, I'm assuming everybody here is Windows, right? Okay. So the reason I talk about this is because they have 3 different ways that you can author a NativeScript app. So one is they got a website. You can actually go to a website, create a project, key your code in, and run it on your device. You can do that. The problem is there's no IntelliSense. And because NativeScript gives you full access to the entire APIs, that underlying APIs, which would be your Android, your Windows Phone, and your iOS, you basically just type iOS dot, and then you can do everything that an Apple developer can do. Of course, you have to know it, right? So if you don't know any of that, to try to start with no IntelliSense is a complete zoo, right? It's not going to happen. The other problem that you're going to run into is, so not only you don't have any IntelliSense in your code, but there's no IntelliSense in the XML file that you have to create that creates your UI. There's no IntelliSense. So I will show you how to overcome that problem, right? You can get full IntelliSense, and you can actually edit the IntelliSense. Anybody remember the old XSDs we had to do for XML files? Well, we're back to that. At least they gave us a starting point, and I fixed the starting point, fixed some bugs in it, and I'll give you the one that I'm using right now. But you can easily extend it and enhance it if you're finding properties or things that they are missing. Because I can tell you right now where there's a lot of things missing. But I didn't run into that problem, so I didn't go fix it. I only fixed what affected my workflow at the time to create this application. All right, so to get started, you just need to go and get you can download it right off of their site, and you're going to download a package It's one of those physics packages, right? So if we run over to my downloads folder, it's called App Builder Physics. All right, so there's a problem with this package. It's broken. In the last 2 releases, the same bug. So the bug is that this particular package gives you a whole bunch of templates. And so they install them and I'll show you where this folder is. They install these templates, and one of the templates is broken. So I fixed it, and I gave you a zip file, and I'll tell you where to copy it. You just go into this one place, rename the other one that's there, put this one in that I'm going to give you, and it'll start working. Okay? So what happens is, if you use the package that comes from Telerik, you can go and add a new XML file. So the name, normally you would just get a dialog and you type your name and you would press OK, and then you get a new file with the proper name. Instead, what you get is $item name $. So anybody who's ever has anybody ever done any packages before? Nope. Okay, so $item name $, is actually a macro inside a package. So I've created packages before. That's the only reason I knew it. And I knew where to go look, so I'm giving you this thing. So essentially, and I just want to make sure that you guys, so when you get home, you can be successful, because that's the only thing I really care about. So over here, I guess I could open up in Visual Studio. I created a couple of folders in here for you, okay? And the folders are right down here. First one is, it says fixed for item template, and you can't see this. Can you change the resolution on this? Because this is impossible for them to see. Oh, okay. So let's fix this resolution, because nobody can see anything. What, like 1200 by 960, or what is it, 1280 by 1024? That's not going to be a landscape one. Which aspect ratio is going to be more landscapey? Like that one.
1280 by 768.
1280 by 768. Okay, well, let's try that. Let me click apply here. Okay, is that better? Yeah. All right, so let's run back over here. All right, so that thing is going to be, we'll have to resize that thing. Well, let's close this down. What the heck happened to Visual Studio?
Yeah, you got to scroll through this.
Oh my gosh. Okay. Okay. I never had that. I didn't know I had to do that. Where's Visual Studio? I'm sorry. I feel like an idiot. Oh. Thank you. Okay. Can you all see that a little bit better now? You may want to come up and be like family. So over here, there's directions. Okay. So there's a file here. And you just read the directions, and you're going to go out there and place this file right where I told you. And you just replace your username here and your install folder. So how do you find your install folder? Because if you've never been out there, it can be a little daunting, right? Well, that's kind of interesting. Explorer, oh, that's because I'm in its folder. All right. So here, under users, and this particular one's mole, that's mine, app data, local, and then it's Microsoft, Visual Studio, down here at the bottom. This is where it is. If you want to have your package fixed, this is where you got to go. Version 12, and then extensions. Now you would think it would be in JetBrains. Well, it's not. Where it is, you have to keep looking in one of these until you find this folder where it has all the stuff that looks like JetBrains, because it says Telerik right there. And then item templates, mobile. See this one here? Mobile NS blank page, and I just changed it to .zip XXX, so it won't show up and it won't get picked up by VS. And you just drop in the file that I gave you, which is right there. You just take that zip file and you copy it into that folder, okay? And then everything will work for you. All right, so that's the first thing you have to do before you get started. The next thing you have to do is you have to put in this IntelliSense file. So when you go and create yourself a new project, you're going to create a folder called IntelliSense, and you're going to drop this file in it. So what I did is out in my project folder. So this is going to be for Telerik. So right here, I kind of kept everything there at the root. So every project I create, I'll just go get it from there, right? Although, if you edit it, then you have to, we're going back to that nonsense. But there ain't nothing we can do about it. So essentially, I provided this download link right here. And here's where it is. It's not even in their main thing. It's under this test thing. But this is the one that they said you can start with this one and work with it. So they're working on IntelliSense, okay? So they don't have it yet for all their platforms. So back to the different ways that you can develop NativeScript. So they have a website, No IntelliSense. Then they also have this package that you can download, and it's a Windows application or a Mac application that allows you to develop for the App Builder platform. So it's all the things App Builder, and it also allows you to create NativeScript apps as well as App Builder apps. By the way, App Builder apps are like the Cordova, PhoneGap-y apps. So if I say App Builder, just think PhoneGap, Cordova, right? So that's another way to develop. The third way to develop is to use Visual Studio. And then you're going to be able to get IntelliSense, and you're going to, because you have to have IntelliSense for stuff to work. Otherwise, you're going to go crazy. Now, if you don't have ReSharper, you're going to have to go get ReSharper. And the reason is because Visual Studio's JavaScript IntelliSense is completely on the floor. You barely get any information. If you use ReSharper, you get it all. So if you don't have ReSharper, go get it. Or maybe one of those other programs will give you all your IntelliSense, but I only use IntelliSense from ReSharper on JavaScript files. I don't use it anywhere else because I kind of like the Visual Studio look. I don't like all that extra stuff. But in this case, I love it because it gives you all the information that you need. Okay, everybody okay with what you got to do to get set up to be successful, right? From here, now we can go and do things. All right, so like a good developer, I went out and I created. Can I do a zoom on this? Is there, they have like zoom? Zoom to fit. Okay, so like every good developer, I went and created this, what is it, Balsamic for my app, right? So I figured out what I wanted. I had this thing, here's my stretch goal, didn't get in. I'll get it in for CodeCamp. And then I've got a question, I've got an image, some buttons for the answers, and then here's my response. This is your grade, and then here's the explanation and those buttons. So I sat down and thought about, well, what did I want to do, right? Now, for Spark Conference is on June 6th. Everybody know what June 6th is, right? What's June 6th?
Spark Conference.
No, it's in American history, it's D-Day. Yeah. Yeah, so it's, yeah.
It's a Spark Conference.
No, it's D-Day.
Carl, I think you got the right answer.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's an important day in American history. It's the anniversary of D-Day. And so what I did is I created an app. I wanted to create an application that was D-Day related. And so I came up with this idea of doing a trivia game. All right. So this is what the end product looks like. Okay. So in order to, good job, Carl. How do we get to, is this it here? Anybody know how to, okay, here we go. And I need to resize this because it's too big and it won't let me get to the thing I need to get to because, yeah, look, you got an app that you can't resize. You have to be at the bottom. Who are these people that write applications? Oh, man. Gosh, man, developers, you guys are on crack. All right, so let's just keep this for a second so we can make it smaller. See, I mean, look at that. Wow, who would do that? Stick it where you can't get to it. I mean, it's just ridiculous. Anyways, that'll be the only negative comment I have. 1280 by 768. Right, yeah, right here? Okay, thanks. Sorry for all the hubbub with all this. All right, now we can make it a little bit bigger. So what we have here is Carl's iPhone. And by the way, I've tested this app on iOS. I haven't tested it on Android. The one that I released for CodeCamp, by the time I do it then, I'll have tested it on both platforms, okay? So the other thing you need to do in order to whether you're iOS or Android or Windows Phone, you need two things, okay? One is you need to go get this little app called NativeScript. So you go to the App Store and you go get NativeScript. What this thing is, it's a little app that runs and it communicates with the cloud that Telerik has. So that when we push our code up to Telerik's cloud and we on our app, we hold our three fingers down, it'll refresh our app from their cloud over your Wi-Fi or wireless. Okay? And that's how they, so your iterative cycle of edit my code, push to device, it only takes a second. Now you can do stuff on an emulator. They have emulators, but then, so the problem with an emulator is that if you want to do it on Android, you could do it on Windows, right? Because you can install the SDK and get an Android emulator and you can use it. But then how are you going to test iOS? So you need a device, right? Or you have to do it, you have to take your whole Telerik project, move it to a Mac, and then you could use the emulator there. But now we're into hubbub. I don't know about you, I don't like it. So it's just easier to do everything on Windows and have devices, and then I could test, right? So all you need is one of these things. Now, the next piece you have to have is it's a QR what? Yeah, it's a QR reader. Okay, so you got to have one of those things. And then, do you want a chair, sir? There's one right here. There's plenty of room up here in the front. We don't bite. And so you have to have a QR reader, and you'll see why you have to have that. And essentially, once you go and use the QR reader, you can forever sync with your code in the cloud very easily. Now, Telerik will give you a 30-day free subscription so you can use their cloud builder. After that, you have to pay. I'm going to write them and say, you guys aren't ready to start charging, but they're probably not going to listen to me because they want to get their money out of this because they spent the last 2 years developing it, but it's not ready for prime time. All right. So let's take a look at the app that we're going to go build. So you're going to see it. Oops. I'm going to go and kill that app so we can actually see the actual screen. You'll see the splash screen come up. There's our little splash screen. Then it comes to our main thing, and it says begin the knowledge test. So we begin our test, and you can see here I got a little picture of D-Day. There's a question. When was D-Day? June 6, 1944 is the correct response. We can click on that, and it says, you can't see it, but this is all green right here, and it gives like a full explanation in case you didn't know the answer. And then you could say next question, which is this button here. If you want to stop the test, you can click that, and then you can re-begin your test. It's June 6, next question, and then now we got this. What was the code name for the Battle of Normandy? Not you. Anybody else know what the code name was? One more time?
Overlord.
Overlord, that's right. Operation Overlord was the code name for D-Day. And so we could say Operation Overlord. And then it says correct, next question. And then I only have 2 questions in there. I'll go add some more, but essentially for this class, all we need is 2 questions. And you can see that it gives you your score, and I'll enhance my score screen. You can go back to home. That's the app, okay? So now, let's talk about this app. All right. Let me go back to Visual Studio. All right, so one of my goals from actually sitting down and doing this app was to provide an example app that you could use to go out and create your own apps real easily, right? And so there's a pattern here that you could easily follow and go make apps, no problem, all right? So if you think about it, like every app needs a few things, right? Well, you have to have a way to navigate around, right? You have to have a pattern for navigation, okay. You probably need a pattern for your data. Most of us use the MVVM pattern in our application building, right? We like the view model pattern, and JavaScript fully supports that, especially with observable types, right? Where if you have an observable type, then you can get your two-way data binding inside NativeScript, and it's real easy to do all this stuff. All right, so let's talk about, I've told you how to fix the template IntelliSense links. So there's this little links text. Here's 2 links. I read these, and it helped me out. So I put them there for you, and I'm sure there'll be more links. Now, one of the things you're going to run into, because NativeScript is brand new, the thing you're going to run into is blog posts as the thing changes a lot. So you always want to make sure you're reading the latest and greatest, right? Because they've changed names. Like on the, one of the fixes I had to do to the IntelliSense was the image used to have a property called source. Well, they changed it to SRC, which broke IntelliSense, and all their documentation, like things didn't line up. So I easily changed that, right? All right, so let's take a look at the project and see what's here. So you're going to have this thing called app resources, which you're never going to fool with. What this is, this folder has all of the platform-specific files that are needed for your application. By default, the item template for creating a new project in NativeScript builds out an Android folder and an iOS folder. If you want to add Windows Phone, then you can easily add Windows Phone by using their command line tools, which are fully documented. They got a video. Basically, you use Node Package Manager, and you just npm your new platform in, and it'll go ahead and add them all to this folder here. Okay, so that's kind of important to know, that little piece. There's videos out there that show you how to build up a project from scratch. Well, of course they have to have that, because why? Well, not everybody's using Visual Studio, right? You could use WebStorm if you wanted to. But VS is it's a nice tool. We all use it. We can take advantage of things that we already own, our tooling. So that's what I'm presenting in that. All right, so that's what your app resource folder is. You don't have to ever fool with that. All right, so the next thing it'll do is it'll create this folder called app, and everything inside app belongs to you. You're fully in charge of app, okay? Now, when it first starts up, it's just going to create this really empty application, and it puts everything in one folder. So most of us, we're going to like segregate our application out, and I'll show you the pattern that I used to make this work. All right, so how does this all work? Well, there's this first file that's called app.js. This is the bootstrapper for the entire app. So essentially what happens is, in this case, you can see we're using that NPM way of doing things with require. So we're saying that we're requiring an application. Main module. Well, main module means what screen do you want to start with? Okay, save yourself an enormous amount of time and have a splash screen. Why do you want a splash screen, Carl? Well, because the very first screen that comes up doesn't have any kind of a navigation bar. All the other screens do, and I was pitching fits trying to make it work so I could get rid of that nav bar. And as of right now, I can't figure it out, and I've read all this documentation, and I can't get the daggone thing to go away. So I created this little splash screen last night. Finally, I was pulling my hair out going, how do I get rid of this stuff? So there's a little splash screen. That's why there's a splash screen there. That's the only reason, is because the first page doesn't have a nav bar. All the rest of them do, and I can't figure out how to get rid of it. I know for a fact that Telerik is working on, and they were supposed to have this out in V1, but it didn't make the cut yet. They're working on a nav bar component. And you'd say, wow, yeah, okay, so you have iOS and Android, right? Possibly Windows Phone. Well, how are they creating all that? I'll show you. This TNS modules, Telerik NativeScript, that's what it stands for. What this is all the cross-platform code that's out there. And so and you'll see me referencing things inside this folder. Now, you don't fool with this folder, right? This is their software that they're giving you. But you can write these TNS modules. In fact, they show you how to do it. What you need to know to write a TNS module is you need to know how the underlying operating system development environment, or not development, but their APIs work. So let's say you wanted to expose a headset on the device. Well, you'd have to know how to get to the headset for Android, iOS, and Windows Phone 7, or Windows Phone, right? Windows Phone 8, in order to be successful. So all the TNS modules they've given you here, They're all the things that they've done already that are cross-platform and guaranteed to work with their, what they call their JavaScript abstraction layer. So where you could just use their code, their JavaScript API, and it'll handle all the underlying stuff for you. You don't have to fool with anything. So for instance, my code to show an image, it was just an XML image tag. Well, underneath that, right, there's something in there that's going to go create an iOS one, an Android one, or a Windows Phone one, right? So there's a lot of stuff going on behind the scenes. All right, so this main module, I don't know how I got off on that piece there. So this is all the stuff here. See where you can see application? That's application right there. Now, I don't know how this thing knows, but if you use any of these folder names here, you don't have to put the dot or anything. You don't have to be concerned about where you are in the path, right? For the TNS modules, it knows to go look them up. For everything else, you have to know the path, right? All right, so these guys don't know that. So then you set up your CSS file, then you tell it to start. So what does start do? It lights this up. That's all it does. All right, so that's your app.js. If you want to have, so let me close this thing down. If you want to have app CSS, you can have it. Don't need it. I mean, I'm not using it, and I'll explain why in just a minute. This bootstrap.js file, they have a little comment here explaining everything to you. You just have to have it here, otherwise everything breaks. And I have no idea why it's there, but I just read the thing and it says it has to be there. License, package JSON, you can edit this, and then so you could put your like little information here, and that'll just be what these, you know, I guess in package world, there's some metadata, and this is it right here. All right. So how do you get a view up there? So let's go look at the splash screen. Now, the first thing you're going to notice is my folder structure, right? So I got view, and then I got all of my different views have a folder, and all of the view-specific files are in each folder, okay? So it's real easy to organize your application. So everything's not in one folder. It's real simple. You keep everything clean. Now you're going to notice here that there's a splash screen CSS, a splash screen JS, and a splash screen XML. That naming convention is required. So when it goes to splash screen XML, their loader is going to be looking for splash screen JS or TS, and then if there's a CSS file, it'll use that one after, so it'll apply what's in the application layer, then it'll put on the specific ones. I thought it was just easier just to create CSS files for each individual form, kind of like styles in WPF, right? So everything's right there. I don't have to go remember what somebody else did. They changed it, they broke my thing, right? So everything's in one little folder. There's no performance issues. All it does is work. All right. You can also do operating system specific things. So you can actually have a splash screen JS, which is you need, but you can also have a splash screen .ios JS, a splash screen .android JS, and then I forget what the Windows Phone, I don't forget what its abbreviation is. And so the reason that that's there is if any code, that when the application executes on that platform, it will load that file and run it. So this gives you the ability to have platform-specific code running. It also works for CSS, and it also works for the XML. So you could actually have a UI, let's say it was your main page, and it had to be bad to the bone, right down to the nail, right? Everything had to be perfect. Well, you could do it. You could have operating system specific files for your application. Now, the selling point, of course, of NativeScript is that we just write it once and it just magically works. So for simple stuff like I just showed you, absolutely, I can't wait to try this on an Android device, you know. But there's going to be cases where you need something like that, right? Maybe there's a feature that's inside the iPhone that you want access to. No problem. You have full access to it. In fact, I wrote some code that's operating system specific, and I'll show it to you so you can at least see inside the JavaScript how you can dial into operating operating system specific code, right? Okay.
Is that in place of or in addition to, if you override that?
In addition to. Okay, so here's my, boy, this is hard, right? Page, background, black, image, align center. Yeah, really difficult. By the way, none of my files are bigger than this in this entire app. They're all small except for one. And that's the view model because it has data initialization, and then there's a navigation piece. That's a little bit longer, but you'll find this is real simple. All right, so let's take a look at this XML here. So that's it. You have a page element, and you're going to notice it has a load event, and then there's a grid layout. I'll show you how to get to that load event, and then there's a layouts. So inside NativeScript, they got a whole bunch of different kind of layouts you can do. There's a grid layout, a stack layout, a dock layout, and there's another one that's like positional kind of thing. But that's all in the documentation, right? So you can go up there, and remember I was telling you, I'll show you how to get there. So we come back over here to this, we look at our documentation, and we wait for it to show up. And then, like, how does it work, blah, blah, blah. And then down here, let's see, layouts. So here's UI layouts. So it tells you how their layout actually works. But then down here at the bottom, you could see you have absolute layout, right? So they got that, kind of like Canvas from WPF, right? Then there's your dock layout. You got your grid layout, works the way all the grids do. It's got columns and rows, stars, auto, pixel height, right? It's pretty much standard. A stack layout, and then wrap. That was the other one I couldn't think of, wrap layout. So they've got some nice containers. I don't know how to make custom containers, but you can access the underlying operating specific containers that they may or may not have. It just depends. I think as this whole thing gets cranked up more and they fix a lot of, V1, this is a pretty good product for V1. Honestly, once I got figured out how to make the package work and get IntelliSense working, right, then I just had to go learn a few things and was able to make an app, right? Kind of just use what I knew as an MVVM program. Well, how do I do it? I was successful. All right, so you could change your different layouts, and then here's our little image thing. So what I did is, it looks just like ASP.NET in a way, doesn't it? So you have this root folder, images, right? So this way you can just hop back up from wherever you are in your hierarchy. You can hop back up there and get your image. So there's my little images right there. Okay? All right. And then we got our splash screen JS. So this is really complicated here. Basically what we're going to do is we're going to use that require, and we're going to bring in this common navigation. So up here in common, I almost named it infrastructure. Because if you're writing a C# app, you got to have an infrastructure namespace, right? But I didn't. I used common. So I'll show you the navigation piece here. Real simple. This is the syntax that after playing with this quite a bit and looking at different coding styles, because there's a lot of different ways you can do this, where you can declare the function as a var, and then below it you can say export that var equals that var, right? But I just found that after typing all that extra stuff, I just do an exports, name of my function, and then put my code in there. And essentially all this is one of those set timeouts to go navigate somewhere after 2 seconds. So down here, I'm bringing in this navigation file here. Essentially, you're going to take the file name, and it's all file name based. So when you go and make your files, you probably want to be sure of the right file name. Otherwise, that refactoring is not going to come into play, because ReSharper's not going to refactor this code for you. So think that out in advance so you don't have to change stuff up. So down here, navigation, go home. So let me show you the IntelliSense. In fact, I should show you on IntelliSense here. So watch this IntelliSense. So that's not bad, right? You get rid of that TNS folder, you get Zippo, like in Lighter, right? You get nothing. You get 0. Okay, and then this guy, all right, so here we go. So here's navigation. And so here's navigation. See, you can see how rich this thing is in ReSharper, right? It brings up the whole world. So you got to know where you're headed, right? And then you're going to be okay. And then go home. There's go home. Got it. Now, it doesn't tell me what my arguments are if they're there, but as we all know, you can create JavaScript, your JavaScript library files. You can create JavaScript IntelliSense files for those, right? Everybody know how to do that? There's little tools out there. If you're a WebStorm user, they have like a little snippet that comes in and it'll build it out for you. So there's some, if you have a big library, you probably want to do that, right? To be nice to your developers. So as an example, let's say that here at Logical Advantage that we had some JavaScript library files that were pretty standard to our apps. We would absolutely make IntelliSense files for them. Otherwise, you make everybody have to work harder than they need to so they can have real good IntelliSense. By the way, NativeScript can use any JavaScript library that's existing out of the box, except for JavaScript libraries that reference the DOM. So let's say you've got your favorite library that does formatting for you or does collections or does whatever, right? You can bring that in, reference it just the way I just showed you, and you can use it. The only stipulation is, though, you can't have a library that references the DOM, because there is no DOM in NativeScript, right? It's just code. We don't got no DOM. So that's the only limitation. So just thought I'd throw that out there. All right. So navigation. Well, what's up with this navigation thing, Carl? All right. So let me go to. I got my full screen here. So you can see that this file is pretty small, right? Can you close that? I don't know why we're talking right outside the door. Yeah, thanks. All right. So essentially, this UI frame. Now, everywhere inside the Telerik documentation, they're going to tell you which of those TNS modules you have to reference in your JavaScript. So for instance, if you're going to do something inside your JavaScript or your TypeScript, they're going to tell you what TNS module has to be required or imported, okay? And that's how I knew I had to do frame, because they told me I had to do frame. All right, so here's the way this works for their navigation. The way that they have this is there's this thing right here. They have this frame module. That's this thing up here. So that references what's inside frame. Then there's this notion of topmost. For whatever reason, you have to call that. And then you can just say navigate. So we're essentially just telling the frame to go navigate to some other page. Well, that's pretty hard, huh? Well, there's a whole bunch of ways you can do it. But the nice thing about the way this works is that you can pass things to the to the page that you're opening. As an example, if you look down here, see go question takes a Boolean begin test, and then here I can have a context property that this particular the question screen, that question.js file, you can test for its navigation context, and you can get that value. So it makes it real easy to pass an object or some argument or arguments to a screen that you're about to navigate to. So it's real easy to pass information. By putting all of my navigation in exactly one file, it makes it real simple to navigate. You call this way, if we need to make a change, we can make a change in one spot, right? I've turned animated off. Now, why did I do that? I did that because right now, if I don't turn it off, it'll animate. The problem is whenever I come back to the question page, the other image is sitting there, and then it replaces it, and you can see it, and it's all tied to the animation because the on navigated to doesn't happen until after that thing swings in, so it doesn't change the image until the animation is over. It's bizarre, and they don't give you navigating. There's no navigating to event. I have to let them know that. There's things that they have to do. So, but this is really minor. So I just turned off the animation. That's why it's off. That's why my screens just flip and change. But I'd rather have that than have my screen, it just didn't look, I don't know, I didn't like it. But if you like it, you can switch it back. All right, so there's this one variable here, home, and I'll explain what that for as we get down to it. So in this case, I'm just, all it is, it's the same pattern. You're navigating, where you're going. Another nice thing about having all of these navigation commands, right, all these functions here, is because now you only have to set your module name, in other words, where you're going, in one spot. So that's kind of cool, right? You only have one place where all this is located at. All right. And then there's a go back. All right, navbar setup. Okay. So here we go. Here's some iOS code for you. So there's a function here called navbar setup. This is the thing that I couldn't get to work correctly. So here we're setting up a title, and now we're going to go get the iOS controller. You see how easy it is to get? Topmost.ios.controller. Now I'm now in Xcode land. I'm in iOS land. And essentially what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this code here so that I can set up the colors for it. They don't have this for Android, so I couldn't find anything about it, but for iOS they have this. What I'm hoping I can do is get rid of all this stuff and get rid of the nav bar. Somebody sent me one of those gists, and I tried it, but I told them I'd try it again to get rid of the nav bar. Because then you can put your own nav bar up there, like one where your application does it, instead of you using the operating system one. Because all I'm doing is a title. Well, I can put a label up there and it looks like, I don't need all that. Yeah, see, this here is what they've been sending me, and this doesn't work. Broken framework. I'm sure I'm right, but maybe I'm not. I don't know. And then what this little bit of code here does, this hides the back button. So that's a lot of complicated code to hide a back button, right? That's up on the iOS bar. So you could see now the value that NativeScript is bringing into the picture, right? Because it's handling a lot of stuff underneath the covers for us, whereas things that they haven't done yet, you have to go and do all this work, all right? So I've done the navigation there, and I gotta watch my time here. Okay, let's get out of full screen here. All right, so now you know how the navigation works, and you just call one function and it sends it off there. So the first place we're going to end up going is the home screen. So on the home screen, I got some really beautiful CSS. On my home screen, I got an image and I got a button. So now we're going to use the tap method here. So here in my grid layout, you can see that I have two rows. I got an auto and a star, right? So the auto is just for the image, and then this button takes up the rest of the space. All right, so let's take a look at this little piece of code here. Full screen. All right, in this case, you're going to see I'm using something new, this painter, and I'll show you what this does. You can't really tell on this screen, but you can tell on that screen. Oh, sorry. Shuffle it. Where's the little thing at? How the hell do you get to this thing? Do you see there's a gradient there? Can you see there's a gradient? Okay, so that painter paints the gradient. It's all done in code. There is no CSS to create a gradient. Remember IE used to have a gradient thing where you could, that really bizarre object that they had in their JavaScript that you can, or VB script that you create a gradient. Well, they don't have that in this. So you have to use native code in order to pull that off. So that's what the painter does. I'll show you how it works. So again, we're just doing a load function. So here, I'm showing you another way that you can do JavaScript, right? So what this is using that, you're creating like a fake class in JavaScript, and then everything's private except the one method you expose. So for those that have never done that before, I decided to do it this way so you could see how that pattern works. And then here I'm just calling my navbar setup. So it actually goes, you send the page, you send your title, and then this piece here says whether, I actually forget what it does, so we won't worry about it. And then here, whenever you whenever you hit the button, take test, it just navigates to the question. Notice I'm passing true. So if I'm the home screen and I'm going to go ahead and go to my question screen, by setting true, what that does is it resets the test. Pretty easy, right? So it just resets the test back to the beginning. All right, so what is this painter object? Well, what this does is the painter, the only public method is this. paint gradient. So you pass your page, and it's up to this guy to decide if I'm on Android or iOS, and then it calls the correct method, okay? And so this particular pattern, and I don't know what the pattern's called. They have names for all these. It could be called the private pattern, right? That guy, whatever his name is, the guy that writes all these JavaScript books, I think he calls it the private pattern. Essentially, inside your constructor, that's what this is. That's actually a constructor when you use this method. You can create private methods because you don't put them onto this object, right? So you're creating these private variables, and then this thing, this particular public method has access to any private methods that are, or variables that are declared up here. And that's how you make private JavaScript, in case you're interested. Then you just return back the page painter, then you gotta do this exports nonsense here, and that's a selfie right there. Was it self? Iffy, right, yeah, whatever, selfie, iffy. I just give up, yeah, it's a selfie and iffy. Yeah, so it's an iffy. So you can see here where you've got some pretty wild stuff going on, and essentially what I did is I just created these two arrays. So here's for iOS, black, color, and then you have to use all this code here. And obviously I didn't write this. I figured I looked for it, put it in, made it, and you could add more gradient points, but anyways. So that's the painter, right? And if you don't want gradients, you don't need a painter. I just wanted to try different things, right? Because we're doing a spike, we're trying to figure out what's going to work for my company, and what kind of solutions that we can provide to people. All right, so that's in our home.js, that's all we're really doing. We're setting up our nav bar, and we're navigating when you want to navigate. All right, now comes the fun part. Question. You're going to notice this guy's got another file in there. It's the view model. So why don't we go take a look at the view model? All right. So now we're bringing in another TNS module, which is the observable module. And what this allows you to do is to create observable objects. And any objects that are observable, whenever the property changes with the set method, not with the equals method, but with the set method, it'll raise a property changed event, and the UI is listening and picks it up, and it'll do two-way data binding for free. That's not bad, right? In fact, I probably, this question will be the first one where you're actually going to see some data binding in the UI. All right, so if you think about this thing that we're making, right? What do we make? We're making a trivia game. So we got to know how many questions do we have, what's my score, what's my current question, right? Kind of like duh, right? All right, here's my questions. There they are in all their glory. We're doing view model here. So what are we going to do? We're going to go create ourselves some JSON. Because like if you're going to publish a game on the internet, maybe you want to let people download questions, right? So this is how you could do it. Or you could just do it this way because you want to work with objects, right? So I just created some JSON, and then this is the to-do for me. Essentially what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the JSON parse method, which takes the questions and makes an array of objects. That's all it does. So now I got a bunch of objects that I can work with. Okay. So start new game. Well, let's see here. Let's go down to, yeah. So I'm exposing methods now. Start new game. So I'm going to set my score as 0. That's the thing that does observables. Current question, same thing. And then here, I'm going to go through the questions, and I'm going to take the user response and the grade, and I'm going to 0 them out. So we're getting we're starting from scratch, right? This gives you the current question back, so that in case there's views that need to get the current question, they can call this method. And then this gives you the next question, so it'll go and increment the index, and then give you the next one. And if you're at the end of the line, right, then we just return all the test is over. That's it. So now we've basically got this object that's observable, which means it raises property changed events, and then our application can now consume this thing and bind to it. Our UI can bind to it. I'll show you how we do that. Okay. So question CSS, it's the same stuff, labels, buttons, whatever, right? So real simple to do. Now we got some data binding going on here. So whenever the question gets, whenever we navigate to this, it's got two events. It's got a loaded event, which runs exactly once in the lifetime of the application, unless you destroy it. But what this does is the way that NativeScript, because I haven't figured out how to destroy one yet, I'm sure you can, I can just leave mine alive and I can navigate back and forth and they stay alive. So loaded runs once, but then whenever I'm navigated to, I get an event that gets raised, and I can be an event sync for that, and then I can run some code, right? Okay, label text, the question. So look at this really cool binding syntax. They got this double curly brace, the variable name double curly brace. Okay, well that was difficult. Well, Carl, where did question come from? All right, so let's just run back over here to my view model real fast. Question, there it is, right there. That's my object that I'm making, right? And then I've also got image, correct answer. So I'm saying what's the correct answer, the user response, and here's all my answers, here's my explanation. So I'm sure you get the gist of this whole thing. All right, so down here, another thing that's really cool about this, this binding is it allows you to have a formula inside the binding syntax, and it'll go and it'll execute that little bit of code in there, and so like do string cats like we're doing right here. So we know that our images have to come from images, so I'm just going to go ahead and add the image name to the very end of there.
So that's JavaScript in there?
No, this is NativeScript. This is inside XML. This is XML. They're going to do a binding evaluator. They've got code that will evaluate this and generate native code that will produce the right result.
Okay, but the code you write in there
is kind of their kind of code.
NativeScript code.
Yeah, it's simple stuff. They've got a bunch of examples. So the way that I've been learning how to find things or how to get to that one file that we keep, or I took you online where I showed the documentation, I would just type NativeScript space binding, and then I would go read the binding page. And then they have a whole bunch of different, there's a lot of documentation out there, right? So then you just go and like figure it out. And then we could see here where I've got a grid layout for my buttons, and you could see here I've just got my answers. So the answers go inside the button text. That was hard, right? So this is pretty simple, right? So it'd be written the same way you would write any app that you would write on the current UI platform you're on today. You got some data, you want to bind to the same, this is like a template, right? So you got a little template and it fills it in, and then you just change the question and you get a different screen result, right? So it's kind of cool. They made it easy. They really did. So now let's go take a look at how do we get this all wired up. It's not a lot of code. In fact, if it wasn't for this, those button clicks, it would just be two functions. So essentially what we got, we need our painter, we need our navigator. Aha, that's how I get my view model. So when I first come in here, I'm going to create my view model. Right here, I'm going to go get it. And then I need a variable at the top for the page because we just need it. Trust me on that. So the same code we have here to paint, set up my nav bar, come down here, binding context. For those of you that I knew were going to ask the question, well, Carl, how did you get the object pointed to the data context, right? Or how did it know where the instance of that image or question property was? Well, the way it works is I go get my current question on my page load, and then here I'm just going to set my binding context. So that is the piece of magic, kind of like a data context and Silverlight or WPF, right? You just take the object and you throw it on there. And yes, you can have data context at different levels. So you can have a data context at different areas if you wanted to. I don't know if you need it. I haven't tried it, but I'm sure it's there. All right. So now, if we think about, well, what happens when we navigate to my question page? Well, the first thing I need to do is I want to go find out. Remember we were passing a variable. It was either true or false, whether this was the beginning of the test. And I told you that inside my navigation script, navigation.js, where you could come over here and you could set the context. You could set that property. Well, this is how you get it. Navigation context, there's begin test. And so if begin test is true, then I start a new game, and then I start doing this. If it's not true, then I just go to my next question. If the next question is null, I go to my result screen. Otherwise, I set the next question to the page binding as my binding context, and I get the next question on the screen. Real clean, simple code. So I kind of like this, and it reminds me so much of Aurelia, right? You sit down, you look at it. You got 3 files, it just works. You keep everything real smooth and simple, no spaghetti, right? All right, now down here, the user can tap one of 4 buttons, right? And I couldn't figure out how to add metadata to a button, so I ended up having to create 4 button clicks, whatever, right? And so I just had one function you just pass this information to, like which button got clicked. So here, I'm going to go get my current question, and I'm going to set the user response equal to the answer, which is one of these, and then I'm just going to check, do they have the right answer? Yeah, they got the right answer. Great. Correct, you get some points. If not, you're incorrect. Then we just go to answer page. That's easy. And I'm going to pass this current question. I'm actually passing it right here to the answer page, so the answer page has all the right information that it needs. So I'm just giving the answer page the whole thing, right? And to make this real simple, we come over here to the answer page. So I'm not going to even show you the CSS, it doesn't matter. So here's the answer page. Same thing, we got loaded and navigated to. So there's my question, here's my grade, pass, fail kind of thing, right? Now notice I'm using the CSS class to get a red or green, and I know you couldn't see it. So the way that I did that, probably should have, it's the only one you really need to see. So I have correct and incorrect. So that matches the name, matches the text that's inside the little button, and then I just say green or red. And that's how I figured out how to do that, because they don't have triggers. So I had to figure out something. And then you got your explanation text, and then you got your label here. It's got different, I'm showing you the different ways that they have selectors, right, in CSS. So you can use IDs, you can use classes, and you can also use the object type. So it's 3 different selectors that they're supported by NativeScript. And in this case, I'm just using the ID thing. And then here's my text, here's my buttons, 2 button clicks. Real simple. Oops. Answer.js, real complicated again. So you've got your painter, your navigation, page loaded. So I'm doing the same thing in all the page loads, and then I'm just navigating from here. So when I get navigated to, in order for all of the information to be populated in the answer screen, I need a context. So I just passed the navigation context. That was that little variable CQ, right? Current question, right? So CQ gets passed in here. Here's my binding context, and now my screen lights up. So it's real easy to pass an instance of an object from screen to screen, and then let everybody play with it, do what they need to, and then show it up on glass on your device. And then your functions are either going to go home or going to go to the next question. We're setting false here. Why? Because it's not the first question. That's the entire app. Well, there's a result screen, but it's lame. You saw it, right? It's just lame as heck, right? Your score, concat, my score. There's my. So I'll probably do something a little nicer, but essentially, so that's it. Now, what's nice about what I'm showing you here is I got 10 minutes. There's a pattern here. If you really sit down now we just slow down a lot and we start thinking about this. So the pattern is that we could set up navigation the way that you think out your app, you add a new screen, you go edit your navigation file. Painter, you probably don't need that unless you want it. I just wanted to try different things like I was explaining. You can come over here for all your views, and you can create all your views, right? And then you go and you create your little files here. And then to start your app, it's just right over here. That's it. That's not bad. I mean, really, if you think about it, you can get a cross-platform app up in no time at all. All right, so now you're probably wondering, well, Carl, how the heck do I get the app onto my device, right? Because I didn't tell you how to do that yet. So step 1 is we come over here to the app builder, and we say build in cloud. So I'm going to click here. And now it's saying, well, where do you want to build? Well, I'm going to build iOS. And I tap here, then I click next. And now, see, it even while you're waiting, it even tells you, you do not need to rebuild again on every change. Use refresh instead. That's all you got to do. What's refresh? 3 fingers. Okay? So I'll come over to this thing. I'm going to close this down. I'm going to close the app down. Oh, my battery's getting low. Okay. So I'm going to shut off all the screens. And then I'm going to grab my QR reader, and unfortunately I can't show you that, but you just hold it anywhere near this thing. Boom, I'm already there. So now, where's this little thing out here? Oh. Okay. So this QR reader, it read it and it gives me a URL. So I'm going to tap my URL here. You can see it's downloading package. Okay, so it's going out to the internet. It's getting my package. It comes over here, and the very first time you load your app, you get this. Okay, how long did it take me to figure out what was wrong? I don't know what's wrong, but it only happens the first time. So how do you get around it? You tap your little button, and you hit the NativeScript little guy, and it'll run your app. Now, after this, it'll take care of it. So we'll have a few demos here. All right, so now you're going to say, okay, Carl, let's make a change, right? All right, so to the home screen, I'm going to go to home, and I'm going to say, hello, mama. All right, I'm going to save it. Now, all I have to do is press this little icon. All right, so I added it to my toolbar so I don't have to go crazy, jump out the window. It's App Builder Synchronize. So it's not refresh, it's synchronize. Okay, so you just add the little synchronize thing here and you click it. Now, you look down here, so it's building my package, and then in about 1 second, it's going to say project upload to cloud. So then you take your 3 fingers, you hold them for a second, and then you get the little, sorry. And then you get the little downloading package thing. So it comes up. Now this time it worked, right? See, it's working. And then we got hello mama, right? Okay, so we got hello mama. All right, now let's do this. Let's go crazy and introduce an error. Okay? Ship it up to the cloud. Okay, and I'm just looking down here, I'm waiting for that second message. Okay, so now my project files are up there. Hold my 3 fingers, let go, downloading package. Sparks are coming, iPhone's on fire. Boom. Okay, so what just happened was it blew up, and then I get a little message. Well, don't worry if it goes away. All you have to do is hit NativeScript. And what it does, it gives you a full stack trace here, and you can look at it and go, can't find variable painter. Oh, that's a pretty good message, right? All I got to do is come over here, fix my boo-boo, save my file, and push it up to the cloud. That's not a big deal. I mean, straight up, right? I mean, this is easy. I mean, there's a lot worse things in life. Now, I know it's hard to see. I'm going to hold it up close. You see where it has reset and sync? All right, what reset is, it means it takes what's inside that NativeScript icon and it resets it back to their default program. They have a little default program that's there, so you could do that. And then, because that NativeScript little icon can only hold 1 application at a time, so if you have 4 apps you're working on, the one that you push to the cloud and then you QR code it, boom, that's the one that little app reads until you go get another one. So, but you can hit sync. So you just tap here. That means, oh, I corrected my error. You're getting the download package, little warning there or dialogue. Yep, there's my knowledge base. Ha, it's working. Okay, 5 minutes for questions. Who's got a question? Yes, sir.
So you're done with the application and you want to deploy it. You want to send it to
Right.
the store.
They've got blog posts for that. Trust me.
You don't need the native script. None of
No. What? No. Have you ever deployed to iOS or Android? Okay, that's another whole. That's a huge. That's another session in and of itself. Just how to do each platform, because for iOS there's a whole bunch of stuff you have to do. You got to go get a developer certificate. You have to have a provisioning file for that application. Then there's some things you do. There's a bunch of little things you have to do. It's a well-known path that's full of a lot of steps, and it's not that hard. I figured it out for this app I'm doing from this project we're working on. I'm doing the in-app purchasing for us, right? And our app is so daggone big, there was no way I was going to try to do debugging in an app that takes 20 minutes to download it. So I just wrote a little Spike app. And so I had to get that in the cloud. I had to get it in for Android and iOS. So I was able to figure out how to publish to both of them, and just by reading the blog posts that are out there. So it's not like it's hard. So yes, you can do it.
So where the application is the one you're going to deploy? Is in the cloud now?
Yeah, well, but
Or it's on Visual Studio there? Is it?
no, the cloud can build it. So there's different ways you can build, right? You can build in the cloud, okay, or you can build locally, right? But if you want to build for Android, you have to build on Windows. If you want to build for, and maybe does Android build on Mac? I don't know, but I know to build an iOS application, you have to be on Windows. So I'm sorry, to build an iOS application, you have to have Xcode. Yeah, you have to have
So
Xcode.
you go to the cloud and get the bits from there and send them to the
Yeah,
store.
yeah, they have a complete blog post, or not blog post, but it's in the documentation that tells you how to do all that, right? So it's just in, when I first saw this, I went and I watched their keynote when they had it, and I was really blown away. I was like, wow, you guys really put out a good platform. Now, the reason I don't have a business application, because kind of in the write-up I talked about doing a business app, the problem is you can't do it right now. So do you know that in a regular business app that has like a couple of text boxes and maybe a radio button or something, whenever you get to the text box and the soft keyboard screen would overlay the text box, it automatically hops up? Okay. But I know you probably don't know this, but that's not built in. There's something that has to happen. You actually have to handle all that. So there's no way I would recommend doing a screen that didn't have text boxes that weren't at the very top of the screen. However, and this is when I was tweeting these guys, I was tweeting their head developer guys, they're putting out, and I think they said August. I think these guys said August. This is another August date. They're coming out with a form control, which is what's needed. That you need a form control where you have a form, you put all your controls in, and this thing takes care of taking the keyboard, moving it up, and exposing the keyboard, putting the correct keyboard on display, up on glass, right? Because depending on the type of field it is, you need the right keyboard. And then turning off the autocorrect if you want. There's so many little things that have to happen in order to have a good app, and then you just have your screen move automatically for you. We actually had to write that for ourselves. That's one of the things I wrote for Unity, because Unity doesn't do any of this. I had to write that for us because our app has a lot of screens, and it's got some screens that have to be filled in, and we need to move the text boxes up and down, so we had to write all that from scratch. I actually had to rewrite their text box control. It's broken. But that's bleeding edge, right? It's no. We used Unity 3D.
Oh, you
Yeah, so that's the only reason I'm really familiar with that space, because I just had to write it for Unity. But that was actually my first question to them. Hey guys, do you have this? And they said no, but they're working on it. So as far as writing a business app, you're going to need that control in order to write a successful business app. It'd be impossible to write it without it. Otherwise, you would end up having to write all kinds of native code, and it would be bizarre, to say the very least. And that's their job. If they're going to charge you for this platform, they ought to deliver at least the minimum, right?
You said that was August?
Yeah, August. But for right now, you can go and do things. You can learn how to do the MVVM pattern. You can take a look at this thing, and there's other apps that are out there, And actually, there's not that many. So, anyways, I hope you learned something. By the way, was it worth coming today to learn something here? Okay, all right, good, yeah. So,
I like how fast the cycles are.
yeah.
Set the link up and just pushing it 3 times. Like that.
Yeah, you just put your finger there and hold it, and it recycles the app just like that. So you've got your edit experience, and after a while, you can just sit there and write your code, right? Because you already know what it's going to look like. And you just. But last night, this is like the first time I did JavaScript in a while. So between that and this other thing, and then just learning how to do stuff and how to structure the app, because I changed the way the app was structured a couple times, thinking I got to deliver something that's a repeatable pattern, because this is an absolutely easy repeatable pattern where you can be successful navigating your app around with the screens, and hopefully by CodeCamp for sure, or probably in the next couple of days, this app will work for both Android and iOS, and I can get rid of that nav bar and have a nicer app.
Hey, I got a question for Carl.
Yeah.
How hard would it be to have it like read a barcode with one code? But not a 2D barcode, but like a 1D barcode.
I don't know. That's probably there's probably code out there that does that. The answer is I don't know. Yeah.
Question for that's really what's going on back from doing getting away from an actual iOS or the native app. Just scanning 50 nodes.
We've done some workarounds. They all suck.
That's what I heard.
We can talk to you about the workarounds we've done.
Yeah, but these guys are reading QR codes, so reading a barcode's got to be easy. It's just a matter of. Yeah, well, there has to be a native library for reading barcodes. There has to be.
You have third-party functions, third-party programs to read barcodes, but it's not. There's nothing for that built into the operating system.
No, but yeah, so you buy a library and you use it. Yeah, it's like everything else. Once in a while you need a library, you know.
Well, as long as the bridge code from here would allow for that to happen, that would be the tough part, right?
The what code?
The bridge code.
Yeah, so
Because the barcode functionality would be all native and you have to bridge.
yeah, so there you can call native libraries, right? You can do that. So there's about 1 million things that I didn't tell you. This platform it can be very complicated. It's very rich in what it can do. Actually, the easiest way to find out is just tweet the guy and say, "Hey, anybody doing barcode reading?" He'll go, "Oh yeah, just do this," you know. So remember, you can use any JavaScript library that doesn't access the DOM. So that's quite a lot of stuff. And then there's for iOS, there has to be barcode readers out. There has to be a barcode reading library for iOS and Android already done. You just buy it, you're done. There has to be. I mean, like the QR thing is reading it, and theirs is bad to the bone. It's got a real nice little screen that comes up, and it goes right over top of the barcode when it takes the little picture. You have full access to the camera. In fact, I think the camera, see, there's our TNS modules, right? And Mr. Camera's right there. There's the camera. And you can see it's got its native code, so it's got the camera JS, and then it's got your camera Android and your camera iOS. So you've got full access to the camera, and now you're just going to take a picture and send it over to that other piece of software that reads your barcode. Probably 15 minutes, and you have that working. I mean, honestly, because there's libraries out there, you know. So.
What about the app builder subscription that you needed? Was there a particular subscription that needed you to be signed up for?
Yeah, so it's called the Telerik platform. And so what I did is I talked them into giving me a 6-month subscription because I'm doing this code camp. So I'm doing 2 presentations for them, right?
They should give you $100,000 too for figuring out the intelligence.
I know.
Yeah.
That was bizarre. Yeah, so the hours I've spent on this is just are incredible. When you go to edit the XSD, it's the old trick: open with source code text editor, right? I know everybody knows that. So if I do a Control F, SRC. Okay, here's the image, right? So you find the complex type name, and they've already written all these converters. So right here, source, It used to be SOURCE, so I just came down here and changed it. And then all of a sudden the IntelliSense is working. The other one they boo-booed up was the grid. Believe it or not, they actually messed up the grid. How do you mess up the grid, you know? So grid layout. All right. Right here, you see where it has extension base? Instead of having layout there, they had the word view. So what was happening was it would compile and work, but I was getting squiggly errors. I'm like, why am I getting squiggly errors? So I said, well, I'm an IntelliSense expert. I'll come here and find out. So I came down here, looked at it, and said, well, wait a minute. Wrap layout derives from layout. Oh, shoot, it's deriving from the wrong one. Oh, no problem. I can fix that. So I just went and changed it. They have another one that'll drive you nuts. It's this one. Editable base. This, you see that type right there? It's got a whole bunch of public properties. Did they put them in? No. So if you look at the documentation, you're going to see all these properties, but you can't use them. And IntelliSense says you can't use them. We just have to put them in. I only changed this file for what I knew I needed to get my job done. But the file could be greatly extended. I'm hoping they'll do it because they get paid to do it. You know, like they're charging us, you know, for this, for using that. But anyways, so you could see here, you know, you could be really, here, so let's close this down. You still with us, Clint? Where's my Visual Studio? Okay.
Dropped off.
Yeah. All right. File, new project. So when you install that app builder, it gives you all these project templates, right? Okay, so when you install app builder, it's not just NativeScript, it's all of app builder, right? So you got Kendo UI stuff, NativeScript, right? And you got some blank projects. So here, they give you this NativeScript master detail, and they give you a tab example. So I'm going to click on NativeScript, JavaScript, master detail, and it's going to just be project 1 here. And I'm going to click OK. And I want to add it to source control. Okay. I'm going to install it on this thing real easy. Okay. Okay. So like I was telling you, this is your empty project. You get your resources. And you get this little app. Now you see everything's kind of all mixed up. Probably not the way anybody in this room would write code, right? Well, let me show you how bad the XML is here. This is native now, right here. No controls. You ain't got nothing without that file. Your DOA. I mean, you're just completely... I was shaking my head. I'm like, where do I start? I don't know what I'm supposed to, I don't know what's available to me. Help me learn your API. So I tried all their other stuff, and then that's why I came to here. And then I figured out, well, I got to use this because this is the only thing I can be successful with. Anyways, so app builder, build project in the cloud. So I go out to my cloud, click here, and then all I have to do is fire up my Q reader, my little reader guy. So on this guy, when you see the screen, you just hit your done button, and then it's got a little target where you point at it. Okay, you can see I've got this little thing up. Okay. Okay. Hit my done button. Oh,
Read the link.
Shiftlet, you bonehead. Good job, Carl. Yeah, you could tell I was up pretty late last night. Okay, hit my link. Now it's going to download the package, and it's going to be a brand new file. Okay, so what this is, it's just a list of items, and then you could tap it. By the way, watch what happens when I tap it. Can somebody tell me what's different about the screen? What's different?
The transition.
No. What else is different between this screen and this screen?
Navigation.
Right. That's how I figured out that the first screen doesn't have navigation. Because I was looking at it going, wait a minute. Well, how come he doesn't have a back button? So then I figured out I need a splash screen. Then I could have all my screen to the same. So it's pretty cool. So they show you how to master detail. That's kind of neat, right? You know, but then and they're showing you some binding, a little stuff going on. So they've got some decent, you know, I'm not saying this is the best app in the world. It's certainly not. It doesn't really lead you in the correct way to structure your application, does it? I mean, it's kind of like ugly, right? And they shouldn't do that. But at any rate, they did it anyway. So there's other apps out there that show you the way that, a couple of the links I gave you, I got some ideas from some of those. And I just said, well, yeah, this is really well thought out, because that's what we need. We're developers. We need a pattern, right, that leads us to success. So we can follow the pattern, then we can really think about what's our business logic. Well, I don't,
Come fall down to old versions of iOS and Android, or what versions?
no clue. Actually, I don't know where the build settings are. I honestly don't know, Dan. That would be a great question. I didn't get that far. I was just glad to get this far. Believe me. Hey, take care, sir. Thanks for coming. Have a nice day. Okay. Yeah, so as far as I was concerned, yeah, so there's a whole bunch of things that I haven't really gotten into yet, which would be like, how do you build it? How do I successfully get it on my device? How do I put it in the App Store? Blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. In fact, I'm going to tell you where I got this idea from, because there's this company here. This is somebody who's got a World War II challenge screen. Oh, shucks, sorry, I'm being a bozo again. So you can look at this and then start a new game, and you got to put your name in, and you start the quiz. So they had this thing, and you could pick your answer, and they're going to say wrong, next question. You know, so I was looking at it going, I need something a little cleaner, right? So they just kind of threw this together in 15 minutes, and they're selling. I think you can buy an upgrade to this. I'm thinking, okay, I need to be selling these kind of things, right? I need to be selling stuff on the App Store, because I'll make a really nice one, you know? They can, you know, no offense, guys, but mine's way cleaner, right? So, anyways, this is where, when I was trying to think about D-Day, you know, I was trying to, how do I do this? And I'm thinking, yeah, there's got to be trivia games out there. So I found this World War II trivia game. Yeah, word. All right, let me see if I can make this nicer. So, anyways, that's how this whole thing started, right? And then they got this answer graph, which is kind of cool, and then you can go back. You know, it's pretty neat. And then you can go back to home. You can start over. I think it remembers. Yeah, you can see I've scored various amount of points. First time I played it, I got them all right, but then after that, I didn't care anymore. But and then this is kind of cool, recommended reading, you know, where they got all these books here. I thought that was a really nice feature, and how they got it overlaid right over top. See how nice that is? That's probably one of the coolest things I've seen on this. And then these little information things, you click on one of those things, and it takes you out to Amazon, and you can buy a book.
And they get their feet. Yeah.
I need to sign up for that. So, anyways, yeah. So you can see it's not hard to get I don't want to say simple, but you could get something that doesn't have a lot of data entry. You could make an app today with this platform, no problem, and it'll work. It'll work, and you can put it in the App Store and be happy. So it's not bad.
Carl, have you ever done Xamarin?
No, I've stayed away from that. I don't. It's way too expensive.
Yeah.
I mean, for a private person. Yeah. So no, I haven't even looked at
I
that.
just wondered how it might compare with that.
Yeah. So I don't. I think with Xamarin you have to write the UI native for every native OS.
The native APIs so well, so
Yeah.
unless you have a whole bunch of complex business logic that's running on the device, I don't think it'd be a good tool.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I've never been in a position where I had to write for multiple platforms, like, deliver for Windows Store platform or a WPF or just whatever that thing supports. I never had to do that before. I will let you know at Code Camp which one of these I like better, this or what was the other thing, the phone gap thing. So the Cordova thing. The biggest difference I've seen so far is Cordova is going to its performance won't be as good as this. They have the issues with touching the buttons. There's workarounds for those, and they're well documented. When you tap the screen, there's built-in delays. That's built into the web, and it has nothing to do with them. But there's workarounds for that. And then there's the other thing is that once you get out into the phone gap world, you're now dealing with plugins, right? Whereas with NativeScript, you're right on the metal if you want to. You saw me dotting into the Java or dotting into the iOS SDKs. So, and then you've also got an army of people writing, will write for this platform. Obviously, it's not 100% yet, but from what you've seen here, I didn't have to buy anything to make this work. I learned a little bit in advance and went through some headaches, but now that I've gone through the headaches, I could create apps, no problem. I just can't create ones with a lot of data entry, at least at this point, right, without headaches. I mean, you could ship something, put it in a scroll bar, and make the user move his finger, but that's awful, right? But you could prototype it and get it going, and then in August when they deliver the form, then you could plug it in. But you can access full access to the data, like any of the underlying structures. You have full access to data services, network services, socket services, anything that a regular iOS or an Android app could do, you could do. Whereas I think inside the phone gap thing, those kind of things are limited to plugins, right? And it's not like they expose everything. A plugin just exposes this one little piece of functionality that they're going to let you do, as opposed to where you just write in on the metal inside your code, whether it's TypeScript or JavaScript, right? You can just be calling native APIs. And honestly, a lot of stuff, like if you want to, how did I learn how to do gradients? Well, I just Googled it, right? And then so if there's something in iOS you don't know how to do, well, it's already been done, right? So you just search for it and then put it in your JavaScript, and same thing with your Android. So like I tried to take that painter and paint other objects, it won't. It only paints pages. It's the only thing it knows how to paint. So if I want to, I wanted to create a gradient button, I was just, I just out there spiking, and it didn't work. So I probably have to go look it up. How do you create a button? Gradient button, right? So, but it was a lot of fun. I mean, I really like this, right? And it reminds me so much of Aurelia. It's just clean and it just works.
Carl, have you had any experience with React Native Development?
I'm sorry, one more time?
React.js or React Native Development?
So we're using something called it's called UniRX, which it's the version of RX extensions, but it's for Unity. So we're using RX extensions extensively in our Unity app.
That's on the React side. The React extension side.
Yeah. So they have that. I'm not so sure I'm a huge, like some people just love it, and I'm using it. I don't know. I'm like, I don't know. I don't buy into stuff real fast.
One of the things you mentioned is that since there's no access to the DOM, you're essentially kind of building out a UI from scratch, right?
Yeah.
And in our scenario, we've invested time in building out a mobile version of our web product, and if there would be an easy way to bridge essentially some of those pieces over to here without having to basically rewrite an entire view mechanism.
So there is a way to show. Somebody asked the question, how do you get a browser to show up in one of these? I think you can.
Right. So then you lose performance. It's almost all down.
Right. Yes. So then you're falling back to that, and you saw how little code I had to write. Right. Kind of just like Aurelia. There's hardly any code. Now there was one line of code that I probably. So I'll close that. I'll close that instance down. So there's one line of code here that that kind of reminds you of the old days, but it's the way you have to get something, and I didn't call it out, so I'm going to call it out now. And it's in the score. I think it's in the score. View, answer. Now, results. Carl, you're getting tired. Okay. Notice here that I have an ID on my label for my score for that, 20 or 10, right? So inside my JS, I can actually get access, direct access to, this is sort of DOMI looking stuff, right? View, get view by ID, page, and then the name of the item, and then you can get full access to it back here. So they have one of their tutorials, they start out with what they call baby steps. So if you see the tutorial that has the word baby steps at the top, what you're going to see is they're going to do everything without view model. So they're going to do it all this way. They're going to go get all the elements, then they're going to assign them, the old way, and then whenever you hit the save button, they're going to go back and get them, bring them into the model, save the model. So then they lead a developer who's used to that code behind way of doing things to more of a data mining way. And in a one screen, one blog post, you can do view model without having to know anything else. But it's anyway, so here's a case where I wanted to just set the text because all I have is a value. I don't have an object, and I didn't feel like creating an object at midnight. So I just passed in a value, and I set my value, and I'm happy. Again, it's a spike. We're trying to learn how to do things, right? So that's why I did that. And then in order to get this view, in order to get this thing, you have to have this right here. You got to have this require UI core view. You get a hold of that script, and then it lets you use that. They give you the code to do that, right? So it's really cool. I really like this. I mean, you can make an app and get it deployed. You start out with a little balsamic, you get an idea, and you go do it. That's how I did it. So we're a little bit over, which is good because we're asking questions, and I hope you guys learned something. And you should give it a go. I really like it. But it's not ready for prime time. But I still like it a lot, and I like to support things that are going in the right direction. Clean code is everything, right?
Thank you, guys.
All right, take care. Okay, guys. So have a good one. Thank you.